Lisa, thank you so much for being with me on the deep dive this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive in.
All right.
So, in healthcare, customers are typically called patients, but you serve a lot of different customers who are not necessarily the patient. Tell me a bit about that.
We absolutely do. Patients are clearly at the center of what we do, and it's our focus. It's part of our values being patient first. But we do have many customers, and customers in and of itself, the word customers is a new word for Hazelden Betty Ford. So we're starting to get a feel for what that means and looks like. But we are a nonprofit, so we have donors. We consider donors our customers. We have B2B customers in the form of referrants, so professional referrants who call us, who say, I have somebody in my care,
Yep.
a client who needs help. So another key customer for us. Alumni, so people who have been through our program, we refer to as alumni, and we have lifelong recovery services and support for them. So another constituent and customer of ours.
Yeah.
So we have many different customers, many people that we're trying to help and to serve. And of course, it all starts with the patients. I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention family members,
Yeah.
close friends and family.
Absolutely.
So in addiction, it isn't just the person who is personally impacted.
Yeah.
It's their support network, it's their families,
Sure.
it's their children.
Yeah.
And so we certainly have programs and services to support families as well. So a lot of different customers that we serve.
That's very interesting to me because you started by saying this is a new word for you guys. And yet I think I didn't count, but certainly listed off close to 10.
Yeah.
So what was that like before you had this concept? How did that work?
Yeah. So, patience certainly has always
Yes.
been our vernacular.
Yep.
And then patients, and there's sort of a concentric circle of different folks that come into and out of our ecosystem.
Yep.
But the word customer has a bit of a bad rap, I think, in healthcare in general. It feels very commercial.
Yeah.
It feels very impersonal.
Yep.
Certainly members of our leadership team, our board of directors, some have kind of bristled and hesitated to use that term. But when we're starting to think and look more externally, I think historically we've spent a lot of time talking to the patients who come into our care and learning from them. But who are we not serving? Who could we serve that aren't choosing us or maybe don't know about us? And using the word customer to get into that mindset of we have to figure out how to communicate to them. We have to figure out what is it in our proposition, our value proposition, that is going to connect with what they need and what they're looking for. And so customer is again, a bit of a new word that we're using to describe a broader set of individuals that have not chosen us yet.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get them to see us for who we are and recognize that there are things that we could do to benefit them.
And how is that internally as you wrestle with the change that represents? Does it feel commercial, and is it coming to terms with that commercial need? Is it something else and you're trying to shift that thinking?
Yeah. We're trying not to make it be and feel commercial. But we are in the business, if you will, of supporting our mission, which is to help as many people as we can heal and recover from addiction and mental health challenges.
Yep.
And so we have to remember that there's always a human behind every single number, right? So as we get more and more comfortable and have access to more and more data, how do we always ensure that a face and a name and a story is a part of that, and keep it sort of less commercial, right? When we're talking about cases opened and admits into care and, the funnel of,
Right.
how we come in and talk about demand.
Yeah.
But there's always stories behind that.
Yeah.
And just recognizing that. And I just heard something in the last speaker that I wrote down and I loved, which is big enough to deliver, but small enough to care. And I really feel like, wow, that is a representative statement of who we are and who we want to be.
Yep.
Our scale,
Yep.
use it for good.
Yep.
Not help people not feel like just a number.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've heard a bit of that as perceptions of, oh, you're too big. I need to go someplace that's small that will treat me as an individual. but we can do that.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of scale and resources behind us
Yeah.
to support that care.
There's so much in what you said from the mission and making sure that you're not abstracting data, but bringing it back to the patient, the person that you're trying to care about, as well as the need to think about customers because you need that to grow and you want to help as many people. So it's,
Yeah.
I think that's very powerful what you're doing, but I also understand the need to try to keep it back to the patient.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So in Insights, we talk a lot about customer centricity. So how does that work operationally now in your world?
Well, I am the first of my kind at Hazelden Betty Ford. I am the
Blazing the trail.
only customer insights dedicated
Wow.
resource within the organization.
Wow.
And thanks to some really bold and brave leadership, a recognition that we need to continue to kind of build the rigor around that and bring it into our decision making. And so customer centricity is, we're on a journey. We really are, from kind of being comfortable with the word.
Yeah.
It starts there.
Yeah.
And then looking for ways to really define who our customer is.
Yeah.
And again, I think historically we've looked inward to say, okay, what are we doing? Who are we serving? What are their needs and preferences? How do we align with that? But my charge and what I've been really focused on is looking externally, taking a broader lens. So building a customer segmentation model where we can use data defined framework to say, here is who the customer audiences are.
Yep.
You could call them potential customers, potential patients, prospects,
Yeah.
but really narrowing in on who are they demographically, behaviorally, needs, preferences, attitudes. And it starts there. So we've completed that work, which has been great. And now it's, obviously bringing it into the organization in a way that people can act on
Yep.
and learn from. And then the next step that we took on was really understanding their journey. So again, yes, talking to and learning from our current patients and what does their journey into care look like.
Yeah.
But also people who go elsewhere. How do they get into the care? What is their decision making like? How do they consider and choose where to seek support?
Yep.
And then taking that learning to say, what are the moments that really matter?
Yep.
Where do we really need to nail it so that we are able to deliver against our mission? And what are those pain points?
Yeah.
So that's been a journey. That's been a process that we're on right now.
You are a one-woman army because that is a lot of work you've already done.
I am, but I have a great team. I report into the marketing team.
Yeah.
And they're awesome.
Yeah.
They really get that there's power in learning from the customer and the patient.
Yeah.
So they're taking that and running with it. And then, I leverage partners and, agency help and try to kind of pull pieces together to make it all work.
Yeah. So in the absence of this customer centricity in making decisions, how did that happen in the past? Or how does it continue to happen? And what are you trying to change?
Yeah, I think there's no shortage of empathy within the organization, right? To a person, particularly those who work in frontline care roles, they care deeply.
Yeah.
And that was evident from, even my interviewing process to come into the organization. So there's care, there's empathy. I think what we might need more of is how do we sort of codify and create some support infrastructure around that. So it's not just about the individual who, has a highly tuned sense of empathy and they're there and they're demonstrating that, but how do we create a system that really shows up in that caring way in really meaningful times and moments when they matter, right? So it's kind of a expectation, a no-brainer. It's just who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
So the work that we're doing right now is being applied to our front end. So kind of the demand funnel front end, where we're looking at revisiting and redesigning our process of even that from that first call, that first contact, all the way through to the admission process. How do we meet patients where they are?
Yeah.
And I think just organizationally, it's really difficult to take a step back and say, okay, this might be what's best for us organizationally, right? Like the most efficient way, the way that works for us. What's the way that works best for the patient, right?
Yeah.
So as an example, right now we're looking at ways to bring a patient into admissions and have them in a comfortable space where they can just be and relax. And there's lots of things to do, forms to fill out, medical checks to complete. We're bringing teams to the patient
Yep.
versus having the patient move around from
Yep.
place to place
Yep.
to do that. And
Yep.
that might seem really simple and basic, but I think it's just, again, taking the patient perspective and what would be best for them.
Yep.
What do they need in that moment versus what works best for us?
That's a great example because it probably would be the flip where your doctor doesn't want to come in or what have you.
Yeah,
But
walk them to the medical unit,
Absolutely.
walk them back to admissions, and
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That is a lot for
to
someone
put
who's
on somebody.
overwhelmed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a really difficult time. So
Yeah.
how do we make that easier? How do we make that more comfortable? And again, keep that patient at the center.
Yeah. That segmentation and speaking the language and the needs of your customer is so important. And bringing that to bear in an organization throughout and making it a process is monumental. So well done, woman. Army of one.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And, I love what I do and I love working for this mission driven organization,
Yeah.
inspiring
important.
every day to see lives saved.
Yeah.
But it is interesting challenge to work in a place where we have trained, licensed medical professionals, doctors of psychology and psychiatry who, at times may say, I know this is my field. I know what drives and motivates people. I know what their emotional issues are and their cares and concerns. So data and insights, what are you here to tell me? Right? So there is a challenge in that to sort of, yes, you do from a clinical perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's your field, but from a consumer perspective, from a shopper perspective, there's new information to be learned.
To listen directly
Yeah.
from that and bring
Yeah.
that new lens.
Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting. So how do you think about commitment to the customer and help your organization turn that customer centricity concept into action?
I mean, it's really all the
That one
things-
example you gave was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly speaks to that
Yeah.
commitment. And
Yeah.
it does have to become a bit of a rallying cry for, the whole organization. So it can't just be one person, one insights, role saying we need to do this or here's data and information and a different lens on empathy. I was sharing in a large group of managers within the organization some tenets and principles of empathy related to the segmentation that we did.
Interesting.
And I was kind of looking at the chat, and we're a pretty active bunch on chat. And so I saw comments and chat features about, well, why is marketing telling us about empathy? Like, again, we know because we're here with patients every single day. And so how do you sort of shift that narrative of actually what marketing is and
Yeah.
what marketing can do?
Yeah.
Empathy is so ingrained and so a part of the function of insights and marketing. So how do we kind of recognize and show that
Yeah.
in really tangible ways, right? And so the redesign of the front end is one clear, tangible way.
Yeah.
One of our segments that we identified is a younger segment that it might be earlier in their journey into treatment and recovery, and a lot of hesitation, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety around it.
Yeah.
And so we actually took that and implemented a new sort of pathway in digitally on our website. And it's really a way to kind of take some of that anxiety down, help them kind of ease them in with information,
Yeah.
and then ultimately direct them to and connect them to a coach
Yep.
who can give them some guidance on, okay, here's where you're at, here's what I see, here's the best way forward, even a free 30-minute coaching session to
Yeah.
kind of help them. So we're taking some steps
Yeah.
to address those different segment needs.
That is a great example because youth take information, interact with people in a very different way than people our age. And what does that look like? And how do you
Yeah.
actually connect and provide that empathy to them, not via, like they probably don't go to websites, for example.
I mean, so I'll just build on that. Historically, we've always just had, if you need help, call.
Yeah.
Here's the phone number.
Yep.
Pick up and that's
Young
the
people don't-
heaviest phone, to pick up, right? And so recognizing that there's different audiences, there's different segments with
Yeah.
different needs
Yeah.
and preferences and communication,
Yeah.
we're really exploring digital as a way to help people. So
I don't even pick up the phone anymore.
right. I mean, so few people do
Right.
these days.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it seems a little bit crazy that we're just kind of doing this now, but
Yeah.
live chat
Yeah.
on our website.
Huge.
We're doing that,
Yeah.
and a number of other things to help again
Yeah.
address those
Yeah.
unmet needs.
The other thing I heard you say that really resonated was marketing is about empathy.
Yeah.
Because while you're working for in an industry or a company that is all about empathy, but really any marketing function is about understanding your customer, being empathetic to them. So you can do whatever it is, even if it's a credit card.
Yeah.
What do they need? How do I provide that to them?
Yeah, and like using their language,
Yeah.
right? Playing their language
Yeah.
back to them
Yeah.
in our communication. I think our industry as a whole can be on the continuum of like super informal all the way to very formal, clinical,
Yeah.
medicinal, right? And I think we play a little bit more in that latter space.
Yeah.
And so, like, how do we move the needle to be less so? Like, yes, we have credibility. Yes, we have data. Yes, we have, successful outcomes and research that we do. It is a highly clinically, appropriate and careful organization. But, like, let's talk like people talk.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so to connect on the human level,
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. And thinking what you said, there are people that are like, why are you telling me empathy? I do this all the time. It seems what I'm hearing is there's this opportunity to make that really powerful by pulling it all together and centralizing and honing it and putting it in the words of the people who you want to provide empathy
Yes.
to. And that's what you're doing.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's really powerful. So what types of questions are you asked internally about the use of data?
One big thing is we have a lot of data.
Yeah.
We really do, but it's very siloed. So we have data from those first calls, those first points
Yeah.
of contact, that's captured in one system. When somebody becomes a patient, it switches over and we have another system.
Yeah.
So we have data living in multiple places. And really right now, again, a journey, right? We're not there yet. And as a nonprofit, we're being asked to do more with less. And every brand says that, right? Like, it's difficult, more with less. We truly are as a
Yeah.
nonprofit.
Yes.
And so the team has done some phenomenal work around just even mapping what data do we have? Where does it exist?
Yeah.
Who owns the data? What sources of data do we have? There's some redundancy in that. What's the true source, right? Like, what do we believe?
Yep.
Because we want to completely build trust in the data that we're bringing forward.
Yeah.
And when you have so many disparate pieces, it can potentially be in conflict.
Yep.
And so how do we just access it and bring it together?
Yep.
So the dream state is data that travels with a patient from pre-patient, right? Like, again, the customer, as early as we can in their journey.
Yep.
And follow them through their whole treatment experience with us and beyond, right? And so we can understand that full continuum. And today we can't exactly do that,
Yep.
just given where all the different pieces of data live.
Yeah.
So that's a big lift right now for us. A lot of sort of data architecture work
Yeah.
happening there. And then tying that into customer experience. So as we're collecting and understanding what the experience is of individuals, how do we bubble that up into themes of opportunity?
Yep.
What
Yep.
can we do better?
Yep.
And having that kind of humble lens to say, yeah, we have a really great product, if you will,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
We do good work, but there's always room for improvement in the experience. So how
Right.
can we
And what is the
deliver
data
that?
telling?
Yeah.
Do you face any particular challenges given that you work in a healthcare-esque or at least a very sensitive industry in bringing data together and
for
having
sure.
data move? What is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on a learning curve for sure, just coming into healthcare, behavioral health,
Yep.
addiction services and support. And, we have to obviously take really seriously data privacy,
Yep.
data protection,
Yeah.
PII, PHI, all of those things. We have a data privacy officer that I'm in communication with on a fairly regular basis
Yeah.
around what can we do, what's allowed, where are we at from a risk perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we obviously want to adhere to all requirements and
Yep.
all guidelines,
Yep.
but I think we go beyond that. We're a pretty conservative, risk averse org as a
Yep.
whole.
Yep.
And so recognizing where is the line of we have to do this versus we choose to do this.
Yep.
And is there room within that? Because if we have all this great and amazing data and we want to translate it into insights and opportunities and
Yep.
build that empathy organizationally
Yeah.
from a marketing perspective, have to be able to
You gotta be
share
able to
it.
touch it.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
to access it. We have to learn from it, and we have to be able to communicate
Yep.
what it is.
Yep.
And so that's another. I use the word journey a lot here, but we are on a journey
Yeah.
to do that.
I think most companies can relate to the data architecture journey and mapping it and all of that. But that extra layer that you bring with the industry that you're in and the people that you're working for.
Yeah. Yeah, and part
Adds
of
another
it,
journey.
Yeah, and part of it is ways to let people opt in, right? Just be very transparent and say, we want to learn from you.
Yep.
Are you willing and interested in speaking to us? Are
Yeah.
you willing and interested in sharing your information and data?
Yep.
And so allowing for that to happen.
Yep.
And going back to the digital experience and digital pathways,
Yep.
creating a preference center.
Yeah.
So people can actually say, yes, share this and this, or speak to me in these ways, reach
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
here's what I prefer. And enabling that, putting it into the hands of the patients themselves.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Now I'm dorking out of my mind about I bet it would be so interesting to compare the opt-ins of different age or demos versus others, because
Oh, yeah.
societal attitudes about addiction and mental health have changed so dramatically over time. So the younger generations versus the older generations, like so much to look at.
Yeah, we definitely see that. There's
Yeah.
generational differences. There's differences in where they're at in their journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a chronic condition that people are managing over time.
Yeah.
And there is relapse, there is return to
Yep.
treatment.
Yep.
So we have segments that we see more of that, and then some where we see less of that. And then, of course, there's preference for, I need things more virtual, I need things more flexible, versus, I do want to be face to face and block out all the noise and just focus on my own health and
Yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of distinction there as well.
Yeah. Last question.
Yeah.
So how do you see integrating the use of data to create more empathy for the people you serve?
I mean, I kind of alluded to the idea of story and sharing it broadly. And I think that's really the nexus of where data lives
Yeah.
with, impact and action that we want to take.
Yeah.
It's one thing to see numbers and, charts of data and the sort of hard hitting quantitative elements, but how do you bring that forward in a really human
Yeah.
way?
Yeah.
And so, some of our work involves conversations like we're having, right, where we can just talk and go deep and and then take that and transmit that to members of the team.
Yeah.
So they might be able to hear
Yeah.
what's happening,
Yeah.
the voices behind those numbers.
Yes.
And I think that's really what we can do as an insights org and as a marketing team.
Yeah.
How do we bring it to life
Yeah.
in a meaningful way? Because
Yeah.
we know that drives action,
Of course.
right?
And you said stories, and that really resonates, because data is one thing, but what's the story it's telling you? And that's what moves people. It moves their heart, but it also moves action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the story of one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great to see 85% say this or 25% need that.
Yeah.
But when you isolate it to a particular person and their story and you
Yeah.
hear that,
Yeah.
it can be so incredibly powerful.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lisa, thank you so much for being with me today on the deep dive.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been great.